And welcome back. I am so excited to introduce our next hope story. It is Wayne and Jane Ingram. They're in my first place for health class, and they are just so much fun. Wayne has a crazy sense of humor that keeps us smiling, and Jane's just so sweet and encouraging. And they started in first place as leaders over 25 years ago. So almost as long ago as you, Carol. But anyway, I'll let them tell their story. Here's Jane and Wayne Ingram.
Hi, I'm Wayne. This is Jane. We are the Ingrams. I'm a retired firefighter EMT and a community college instructor. Jane is a former elementary school teacher. Our first place background started about 25 years ago in our church. It was then still fairly new. I was a deacon and Jane and I both were Sunday school teachers. We did 4 sessions of first place and felt the Lord's leading and guiding and blessing every step of the way. At the end of our second session, the group had lost 1,000 pounds. After I had retired from the fire department and moved back to Tennessee, realized that we had gained some weight after 25 years and felt a need to work on getting back to losing weight and being more healthy. Another incentive is I was told by my doctor that before I could have back surgery, I had to lose 100 pounds.
We decided to check into first place again and were encouraged, and we joined a virtual group in January of this year. We're now in our 3rd session. We felt good about this because we knew first place is the best weight loss overall program around. And it's been a real family endeavor because our daughter has joined us in our sessions, and she's working on her PhD, so she's had a double focus during this time. The 3 of us we have benefited both in similar ways and different ways. For instance, Laura recently found out that her blood work, in her blood work test, that her A1C is down to 5.9, which she attributes to healthier eating and just the fact she's moving more. You might ask, what does first place mean to us? Well, I would answer many things. We've learned so much from our groups. Just this week, the question came up about snacks. Are they healthy to eat along with 3 good meals a day? So Lisa, our leader, said studies show 2 snacks per day are good for a healthy diet and for losing weight. This made me realize all this time I've been had wrong thinking about snacks. I always felt guilty because I thought, well, they were helping me gain weight. Then I decided to check the internet, as I do so often, and I found a good website for snacks. The creator gives recipes and pictures and lots of good ideas. The website is called Nourished by Nick, that's NIC.com. Another big change for me is that I'm enjoying cooking again. I'd reached a point where it was a real chore. I knew first place would mean making a big difference in grocery shopping and meal planning, but I knew it was going to be worth it. And I knew the group would help me encourage to do it. The first thing we did was to get rid of all those unhealthy foods, because after all, out of sight, out of mind, after a while, these foods no longer tempt us. And we know they keep us from being healthy and succeeding in our weight loss. We have learned that healthy cooking is superior to the fast food lifestyle, and it is a lifestyle. We feel so different and so much better satisfied. Also, somehow by God's grace, we have begun to lose the weight. And you may think all this is going to take more time, but it's so worth it. You can be creative with short meals or long prep meals. And I have found with the long prep meals, this is an act of love for your family and yourself. And it pleases God because you're taking good care of your temple. In the Bible studies, we've learned more about have a deeper relationship with our Heavenly Father. Plus, all three of us love to cook. We have different styles, but they all seem to work out in a positive way. Overall, the biggest thing I've learned from the 3 sessions, is perhaps the most valuable. That is, I'm learning to change my mindset from an unhealthy way to think about food to a healthy way that'll keep the weight off and keep me healthier. This means, for example, I'm trying to think how people that don't have a weight problem think about food. One thing is, I'm sure they don't, when they get depressed, eat, and eat more. So this is a new way of thinking to me, but in my mind, it's I'm following God's leading, that the Bible study is helping me to do that, and I should follow. As often happens, sometimes in the daily Bible study, it will reinforce new ideas. For example, the introduction to day 1 in our current Bible study concludes this, and this is a quote: "Changing old habits and replacing them with a healthier lifestyle takes time and occurs over several seasons." This is a reminder to let go of that old distorted thinking and embracing how much God wants us to see ourselves as He sees us. Some would say it's like a loving parent is with their little child.
We believe staying in a positive frame of mind is important to the success in first place. One way to do this is to spend time in nature and enjoy the wonderful and beautiful parts of God's creations, like the birds, the flowers, the mountains, the forest, and the seashore. Most of us will have times when we are less than positive, but please remember that this is normal, and please don't beat yourself up when this happens. Sometimes just changing your activity can help. I find that trying a new recipe stirs up those creative vibes, which puts me in a better mood. We have one of God's creations in our home, a very loving and energetic golden retriever pup named Ryder, who helps keep us in the right perspective. We found low-calorie snacks, and they're healthy and just help keep us on track. They're low in sugar and other things like Walter's fruit snacks, brownie bite brittle, and these Rip Van waffles. They're all good, low in sugar.
We also have a wealth of good recipes in our Bible study each time. Another thing I do is I will just Google, and I'll say, ask the internet for a good recipe or a healthy recipe for whatever that food is. I like good muffins, and I found a really good recipe for blueberry muffins. One of our favorite meals is the beans, like pinto beans or Great Northerns. And you can also have with that slaw and corn muffins, and greens like kale or collards. And sometimes we'll sprinkle green onions on the top of the beans. But it's surprising how satisfied you'll feel after eating a meal like that. Another thing is, when you reach a weight plateau, this is normal. I've found that increasing your exercise, like just mainly walking, will help you to continue to take off the pounds. And don't forget to be patient with yourself. This is not about being perfect.
Remembering those Bible verses that are meaningful to you, you can write them on a 3x5 card and keep them close to you. One of my favorite ones is Philippians 4:6, which I keep under a little sheet on the glass on my desktop. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and then thank Him for what He has already done.
This reminds me about the many promises that are in the Bible. I read recently there are over 8,000 promises in the Bible. So what I thought next was, why are there so many? Could it be because God knows we have a need to be reminded of His promises frequently? One of these promises is great. His mercies are new every morning, and then to that one is great is thy faithfulness. And these were from the Book of Lamentations, written in 856 BC. Also love the one that says he is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, Ephesians 3:20. And I relate to this this year in January. I knew I was scheduled for a hip replacement in February, but I also knew my A1C could not be any higher than 8. So my group prayed with me about it, and when it came time for the blood test, it was exactly where it needed to be. Also, the group support during and after the surgery was a great help. It hardly seemed like I had surgery at all. Before we go, I want to share with you what I'm sure many of you could testify to, and that is how quick and special God can cause things to happen in your life. For example, the other day I was grocery shopping, and I went into the section that has the flowers, and I looked in the case, and this is what I saw. And I'll read it to you. It says, a beautiful day begins with a beautiful mindset. So that combined the two verses about His mercies are new every morning, and the need or the key to success and weight loss is changing your mindset. So not only did this give me something special for my home, but I now have a delightful memory of God's love and grace.
We are all on a journey, and first place is our partner in learning how to live each day in the way God wants us to. We pray each one of you will be successful in every way. God bless and thanks.
Thank you for listening.
One thing I love about Wayne and Jane is they are all in. They are they're so curious. You can tell they Google things, they find new recipes. They always make their call. They always turn in their tracker. They are just all in, and they're just a great couple. But she kind of started doing a little of my talks. She was talking about meal planning. So I was wondering, who wants to say no to meal planning? Anybody? Who loves it? Does anybody love it? That's good too. Meal planning is good. Whenever we start or make the decision to eat healthy or lose weight, we always hear you need to make a meal plan. You need to prep all your foods, plan your meals for the week, and just do that before you start. So, and there are articles and videos all over the internet about how to prep your foods. There's bento box lined up, just pictures. You could spend all day on Pinterest looking at ways to prep your food. But what they want you to do is sit down on Sunday night, go through tons of recipes, make a big grocery list, maybe even cook a bunch of batches of something. And a lot of times, at least for me, that meal prepping day just kind of never comes around. It just never quite happens. I want to do it, but it just doesn't happen. So if you're someone like that loves food prepping or meal planning, I'll definitely go for it. And we don't want to get rid of it completely, but a lot of times even when you do meal prep, by the time you get to day 3 of that salad, you're like, okay, I'm bored with this. You know,
Exactly.
I love the jarred salads, but 1, 2 are great, and 3, 4, 5 are just, you know, you got to gut your way through it. So, and maybe even just the mental stamina it takes to kind of consider doing all that meal planning and all the things you need to do to prep. So the question is it possible to eat healthy without planning meals? I say yes. I say it is. You can easily eat healthy, low processed foods without doing all that meal prep. So we're going to talk about a few ways we might do that. So how we can say no to meal planning. And another benefit is you can save money on your groceries. You can pull a meal together with just what you have in your pantry. You really don't need all that prep. So first thing you need to do is up your grocery game. So we're not going to totally take out all the work, but we're not going to be prepping batches of boxes, but you need to stock your pantry with some basics, just basic things. And the first one is grains. Grains are really the all-star because you can use those in everything. Salads, soups, tacos, just all kinds of things you can have. Quinoa, we hear a lot about quinoa. We're probably kind of, you know, over that quinoa craze. Have you ever heard of freekeh? It's spelled F-R-E-E-K-E-H. That's another good grain. It's one of the Mediterranean grains, the ancient grains, and it's whole wheat. It's the whole wheat. And so whenever you cook whole wheat, brown rice, that kind of things, it takes a little longer to cook. But it also comes in a cracked wheat version, which is also whole wheat. They just cracked it. You still have the whole wheat germ. So it cooks a little bit quicker. It's got kind of a nutty, earthy taste. They call it the grain, what's it called? The grain born in fire, because it has kind of a smoky taste to it. That's how they cook that green durum wheat. You know, they fire roast it. So it's got a lot of proteins, got a lot of iron. So kind of investigate those other grains that maybe you haven't tried. The farro. Has anybody tried farro? Y'all are adventurous. Y'all are getting out there in those grains. I like it. But usually find all of these where you find the quinoa and the rice and all that kind of thing. And you can find, you know, brown rice already cooked in little bags, little microwave bags. I'm all for convenience. Whatever gets that dinner on the table in the shortest amount of time,
Yes.
go dinner. I like it. So, but grains make an awesome base just for anything. If you know, grain bowls are everywhere these days. Every cafe has a grain bowl of some sort. You can even go to a cafe and pick what goes in it all the way down the line. So those are super popular. But grains work cold too. You can have them for breakfast, cold in a salad, or hot for breakfast, just like you would quinoa or oatmeal cereal. Hot cereal works just as well with that. And you can find them in the bulk bin, so you could save money that way. So grains are a good starting place. You always want to have those in your pantry. They freeze well. They last for years. Grains will last forever, except for the cracked version if we're talking about freekeh, because that one only lasts about 3 months. So that one lasts a little bit shorter. But grains and beans like that and things like that last forever. And if you ever maybe you want to make a batch of those, you can freeze it and put it in serving sizes in the freezers. Anybody do that? You can put it in a muffin tin just in the exact sizes, so you don't have to pull out your measuring cups when you want to have some quinoa or some rice or something like that. So, and you can you don't even, a lot of people are kind of anti-microwave. If you are, you can just put it in a warm bowl of water. Just put the whole little plastic bag in a warm bowl of water, and that'll warm up whatever grain you're using. But even if you're not using it just as, you know, for whatever side dish you're going to do, you can make it. There's a really great salad. Have you ever heard of Jennifer Aniston's salad? You can Google it. It's a really good salad, but it's got things like that. It's got quinoa, but you could use freekeh. You could use any of those things. It has cucumber, feta, chickpeas, red onion, pistachios, a squeeze of lemon. It's a really good salad with just all fresh ingredients. So there's just so many ways you can use grains. So that's a key thing to have in your pantry. Another thing you want to have in your pantry is beans. Now, I love the smell of beans cooking, you know, with the chilies and the onions and all that stuff cooking all afternoon, but we don't always have time for that. I know I don't. I don't have the time management skills, maybe. I never, I don't think of it till 5 o'clock in the evening that, oh, I was gonna put on some beans. Yeah, and don't do it. So canned beans are just as good. Canned beans are just as good. Now, when you open a can of beans, like navy beans, kidney beans, they're not that appetizing. Do you ever want to just open a can and just eat them right out?
No.
No, not me. So, so you got to kind of tweak them a little bit to make them taste like something that you would want to eat. But another great thing about them is they last, they last forever. Canned foods last forever unless it's exploding or, any of those weird things. It looks weird. Don't eat it. Yeah, skip those. But you can use them in just about everything. So when you put beans in like a soup or a chili, that's fine because all those other flavors are coming with it. So, but if you're kind of doing it as a standalone, you have to do something with it. So one thing you can do is make refried beans. I love Mexican style refried beans at the restaurant, but we always hear they're not healthy. Even the ones in the store you get, sometimes you flip that can around and it says they have lard. So those aren't always the best option, but it's super easy to make your own refried beans. With just one can of beans, you can make enough for your dinner. So what I would do is heat a little oil and then put grill some onion, like half an onion, just diced. And then you just add your beans, add your spices, just the typical stuff, oregano. And I'm going to put a link to any recipe I talk about today on session 1. So if you go to your curriculum, click session 1, you'll get a handout with the recipe. So if you don't catch every ingredient I mentioned, it's not a problem. So, but it has oregano and chili powder and cumin, just all the typical things that you would have. And it just punches up and takes away kind of that tinny can flavor of canned beans. So add a little broth and you can, you just mash it and just add however much broth just to make it the smoothness that you want. If you have an immersion blender, even better, you can get it even smoother, but any kind of masher works. You could use a fork if that's all you got. So just an easy way to transform a can of beans. So if you just always have these things in your pantry, you always have a bag of quinoa, a bag of freekeh, or a bag of brown rice, or beans, kidney beans, cannellini beans, just black beans. You can really pull together so many different recipes. Another thing I like to do is pan fried chickpeas. Has anybody ever roasted chickpeas in the oven? Yeah, that was popular. A lot of people did that, for a while. But you can also pan saute those. Just put them in a little bit of olive oil. You want to just cover the bottom. That's all you want to do with olive oil. And then put your beans on one layer and just let them cook just like that, just for like 3 to 5 minutes. You want them to get kind of crispy and brown on the bottom. And then after 3 to 5 minutes, you flip them over and cook them another 3 to 5 minutes. It just gets them a nice and crispy brown. And you can add some, you can add some spices to that, some garlic salt, or even just paprika if you want kind of a smoky, spicy flavor. If you go to the First Place website, there are 4 different recipes for the roasted chickpeas, but you could also use those spices with cooking them on top. So, and you can kind of control how crispy they get when you're cooking them on top rather than in the oven. Sometimes I pull those out and they're just not quite as crunchy, as I want them to be for snacks. So, but on the First Place website, they have plain chili lime, buffalo roasted, and Parmesan garlic. So many flavors you can do with beans, with chickpeas, which I'm calling beans. Another thing you can do with chickpeas is make your own hummus. Has anybody ever made your own hummus? It's not that hard. And it's so much better than the store-bought. You would be amazed. You may eat store-bought all the time and perfectly happy, but if you make it at home, it's better. It's way better. And it's super easy. It's with lemon juice, chickpeas, garlic, a little tahini. Does anybody know what tahini? So sesame, yeah. So it's just a little mixture you can mix in there, ground cumin, a little salt, pepper, and you're ready to go. When you serve it, you just put a little paprika on top. Now, when you're making hummus, you can do it in a blender. If you do it in a blender, you put it all in, all your ingredients in. But if you're doing it in a food processor, you'll want to do one ingredient at a time and just keep pushing it down and just working your way up through all of it. And the food processor is probably going to get it a little smoother than your blender. And some people do you peel your chickpeas?
I've used cans.
Do you peel, sometimes those have peels, you don't peel your candles either, yeah. Some people really say you have to peel your chickpeas, and I say no to that, that's too much work. I'm not doing it. Yeah, it's just a kid, yeah, I can live with being slightly less creamy. If I don't have to peel these little, chickpeas, I know you can rub them around, but then you gotta pick it all out. It's not fun, don't do it. All right, another thing with beans, that when you cook the beans, they have this nice sauce, they're almost like soup with the beans. So you don't really get that with canned beans. So another thing you can do with beans is add something to it. Coconut milk, just warm your beans with a little coconut milk. It really gives it a good creaminess along with whatever spices you want to throw in there. You could put some tahini in there. You could put a can of diced tomatoes. I know when I cook beans, I put tomatoes in there. So why not throw in a can with your canned beans? So just look for ways to kind of add to those beans. But those are just a great staple to have in your pantry. Another thing you can do with beans is, again, coat your pan with olive oil, your saucepan, and whether it's kidney beans or black beans, whatever kind of beans it is, you can pour it and just simmer it in that olive oil. And those beans really soak up that flavor. And then add some garlic salts or whatever other kind of pepper you want on there. And that kind of ups the flavor. So you don't really have to do a lot of work, just a little work. And canned beans work just as well as, cooking for 4 hours or whatever you do to make your beans. Another thing we always want to have is some kind of protein. We have a lot of options here. We talk about rotisserie chicken all the time. Does anybody buy rotisseries? They're so easy, and you can use that chicken for anything, just a million different things. Tostadas. Carol's a big tostada fan, aren't you? I know you order a lot when we go out. Well, those are super easy to make. Just a little bit of your refried beans, some of your rotisserie chicken, little cheese on top, and you're done. That is a meal in 5 minutes. You can have just long enough to kind of melt, heat everything up and melt that cheese. So that rotisserie chicken can go a long way. And that can kind of be the downside to leftovers. I'll love the meal the first day, but then when I look at it the next day, it just doesn't look that great. So I like leftovers that I can repurpose. You want to be able to repurpose that into something else, and chicken is great at that. If you look on our website, it talks about a few things you can do with rotisserie chicken, and you can mix it with barbecue sauce and put it on a bun, and you have a barbecue chicken sandwich. You can, we talked about the tostada. You can make a light ravioli. If you buy wontons, you can get your shredded chicken that you've taken off the rotisserie, mix it with a little part skim ricotta and some grated Parmesan cheese. Just mix all that in a bowl and then dot it on the wonton. Put another wonton on top, and you find the wontons in the produce section. They're refrigerated. And then just wet the edges and seal it down, and then boil it for about 3 to 5 minutes. And you have a healthy ravioli that you've made with stuff you just have around. And wontons last a pretty good while in your fridge, and they freeze well too. So all of this stuff is stuff you can always have. So you didn't need to plan that meal because you always have the wontons in there. You always buy a rotisserie chicken. You always have beans in there. So that's the idea, not really planning, but always having the stuff in your pantry that you need to just whip up any kind of meal. So that's kind of what we're going for. You can use chicken in a no red meat chili. However you normally make your chili, just put the shredded chicken in there, and a nice low fat option for chili. You can add it to the grain bowl that you're going to make with your frika too. That would work. But anything, sandwich, tacos, leftovers, are your friends. So those are the things you want in your toolkit: grains, beans, and proteins. Because salads, wraps, all those kind of things, the things that don't require much cooking, those are going to be the quickest to put together. So that's kind of what we're going for. Keep you out of the kitchen as best as we can. And you need to kind of think about that. So that's really the only mind thinking, stuff you got to really dig into. What do I like? Think about the recipes you always like to have. How can I make those differently? How can I shortcut this? Or how can I always have in my pantry what I need to make this? If you like on our website in the cookbook, there's a fettuccine recipe. So if you just always have cream cheese, you always have egg noodles, you can always make, and you would have milk, most likely, a little bit of Parmesan. You can always make fettuccine any night. And that's a 10-minute meal, however long it takes to melt the cheese and cook the pasta. So just seek out recipes like that and and if they're not too complicated, you're going to remember how to make those. And simple is better. Simple is easier to track. Simple is easier to make. Simple is less time. So we want to shoot for simple. So some other things you want to have in your pantry are, because we think about fresh produce, it goes bad. And when you buy the berries, by the time you open it up, decide to eat them, they're already yucky. Even your salad greens. So think about things that last a long time, like apples, oranges, any citrus fruit lasts a lot longer in your fridge than some other fruits like strawberries and the softer berries. Celeries, carrots, baby carrots, cabbage. Has anybody ever made cabbage steaks?
Yes.
Love those. Do you like those?
Mhm.
So you just take a head of cabbage, put it stem side down, and slice 1/2-inch slices. And then you spray a sheet pan, lay those slices down, and then just sprinkle those with a little bit of, brush them with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper or garlic salt, and then bake those in the oven for about 25 minutes. Really good. Really, really different way to have cabbage. And you can put stuff on top. Some people will put tomato sauce and mozzarella cheese and make cabbage pizzas. And it's really good. You should give it a try. It's an interesting thing. So another thing that you would want to have is potatoes. Potatoes get a bad rap, but potatoes are not bad. All vegetables from God's kingdom are good for us, all of them. So, and potatoes are one of them. Our problem is we get this size potato instead of this size potato. Or we put bacon on it, or we put, way too much cheese. So it's the other things that happen to that potato after we get a hold of it that kind of get us into trouble. And then onions are the base for everything. If you're an onion person, not everybody is. I had somebody at Round Top that wasn't an onion person, and that really just hurt my heart a little bit, but I did it.
My heart.
But you can start any soup by just sauteing some onions. Add broth, throw in beans, throw in frozen vegetables, throw in rotisserie chicken, throw in some brown rice you cooked the other day. Just sauteing those onions is the start of any kind of soup you want to make. You have no excuse to buy a can of soup ever again, because you will always have that stuff. You'll always have some frozen vegetables, because we're saying right now that we're setting our pantry up for success. You're always going to have frozen vegetables, you're always going to have beans, you're always going to have grains, and you're always going to have some kind of protein. So you can always whip that up. And then in the freezer, you can have bell pepper strips. They even have, you can buy chopped onion. If you do not want to dice up onion, you can buy it frozen. Why not? There's no shame in convenience.
Amen.
I am all for broccoli florets or edamame. You want to always have that stuff in your freezer. You never have an excuse not to have a vegetable. And all of those frozen, like we like to roast. I like to roast vegetables with just a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, maybe some garlic salt if you like a little garlic. And you can frozen roast just as well as fresh. They work just as well. You can still get that nice char, that nice caramelization. So just always have those in your pantry. Another thing you want to have is canned, besides the canned beans and things, is jarred things. I like to make marinara and freeze it and put it up, so I always have it. But there are times when there's none in there. And it's nice to be able to reach in the pantry and pull out a jar. So they're good to have your backup jars in there. Maybe you don't like to make homemade marinara. Maybe, you're a fan of Progresso. And there are some good spaghetti sauces in a jar that you can find out there. Just look for the low sugar added. So lots of good sauces. We always want to have broth, because we're going to use broth for everything, right? That helps us with our hummus. You could kind of thin out your hummus with a little broth. You always want to have corn and things like that. Fruit, you always want to have fruit in there. We were talking about, they were talking about the recipes in our Bible study. We're doing Fit and Healthy Summer right now. And there's a recipe in there for a fruit dessert. And it's basically just fruit in a pan, dotted with a tiny bit of butter, and then some hard cookies that we've taken and crushed, sprinkled on top. So you're really not even getting a whole cookie per person. And you can use whatever fruit you want to put in there, and you can have a dessert. It can be canned fruit, drained, or it can be frozen fruit if that's what you have. Just whatever you have, you can have a dessert ready to go in just 2 seconds. Well, the baking takes about 25 minutes, but you can put it together in just a minute or less. And I love frozen fruit too for maybe oatmeal. You can, any kind of berry that you have, raspberry or blackberry, you can put in a saucepan and just heat it up over low heat for about 5 minutes. And it just makes this warm kind of compote. And you can put that over yogurt. You can put it over pancakes. You can put it over oatmeal. So, and it's super quick. That's just 5 minutes in a pan with some fresh fruit that you have, either frozen or fresh or in a can. So those work good. You always want to have maybe some nuts. We were talking about that Jennifer Aniston salad. She put pistachios in there, which I love. Just crack some of those. And you don't need a lot with nuts. You just, especially if you crush them, you can kind of sprinkle those around. And those, for your salad, those roasted chickpeas work great as a crouton substitute, give you a little crunch. So you always want to have that kind of stuff. Things that have a long shelf life, all of these things are relatively inexpensive. Broth, beans, onions, potatoes, with our grocery bills going crazy like they are. It's the convenience foods that are gonna shoot up there, that are really going up in price. Cereals, especially the sugary cereals, all that kind of things like that. And it's convenient that the unhealthy things are going up a little faster than maybe some of the produce. So maybe kind of a nudge to us. You want to save money, you got to eat healthy. All right, so we want to keep it simple. We've talked about that. So let's look at some other things we might make with some of these things we talked about we needed in our pantry. Another thing you want to have in there is sliced bread, whole wheat muffins, English muffins, whole wheat bread. If once you maybe your kids move out, you start to not want to buy that whole big loaf of bread because you're not going to eat it all. But it all freezes well. It toasts well. So you want to have those things in your freezer, those whole wheat versions of things. So you're not stopping, at Shipley's on the way into town. You have something there. And breakfast is kind of a tough one. So you want to have, all y'all out there don't know what Shipley's is, you're missing out. Y'all have your Krispy Kremes, but we have our Shipley's. I'm saying all this before lunch, so if y'all are all getting hungry, we're all gonna eat in a minute. You don't have to worry. All right, so we're talking about all these quick and easy things, but if there is like a recipe there's a great recipe on our website for ranch dressing. There's a great recipe on our website for a balsamic vinaigrette. There's all kinds of things that maybe are a little more complicated. And those might be the things, okay, I'm going to spend time on that tonight so I can have some salad dressing. But maybe that's not your thing and you'd rather just buy a salad dressing and you're just happy with that. So there are going to be some things that are more labor intensive that you want to spend your time on. And that's perfectly fine because you're saving time in all these other areas. So you want to look about that. And then I like to buy fish. And so I'll just you can put all of that on one sheet pan. You can put your fish and your broccoli and your olive oil on top and your salt and pepper and roast it all at one time. And it's all cooked and clean, all in one pan, ready to go. So look for ways to make it simpler. Did you know that if you marinate chicken tenders in mayonnaise, they're super moist? So if you're going to cook a bunch of chicken tenderloins to maybe use later, marinate those in a low-fat mayonnaise. It just, the chicken soaks up that moisture. So then when you reheat it later, it's not as dry as some of your, typical ways you might cook chicken when you roast it in the oven. So mayonnaise, secret trick. Some people use buttermilk, which works pretty well to kind of give moisture to your chicken. And whenever you're making those roasted vegetables, why not do a whole pan of it? And then you're done. Put it in the freezer, put it in the fridge if you know you're going to eat it in a few days in something else. do your future self a favor and go ahead and cook for them. If you're cooking anyway, you know, just go ahead and help them out and put an extra in there. If you're roasting a chicken, roast two. If you're making chili, double it. You know, if you're making soup, double it. You know, just think about a week from now. Are you gonna want this soup? You know, and plan for yourself in that way, but only because you're already doing it. You're already making this thing, so why not? Why not double it up? And we were talking about the convenience foods. Look for the spiralized, you know, zucchini. If you don't want to spend all that time spiralizing, the cauliflower rice, all these things that are labor intensive, buy that stuff. You know, it's a little more expensive than if you did it yourself, but it's a whole lot cheaper than eating out. So you're going to be saving money. Buy your convenience stuff. All right. So does anybody have any questions as we're going along? I've just been thought, anybody have any cooking questions? All right, good. Just wanted to, yeah.
Tell us about your cookbook.
I do have,
You didn't mention yourself or who you are.
oh,
Did you?
no, I just assumed that everybody
knows you?
read who, no, everybody read who was going to be talking this morning. I do have a cookbook. It's called Healthy, Happy Cooking, because I want you to be happy about healthy cooking, not something you not have to. You know, when you talk about have tos or get tos, I get to make this fun food, this healthy food. So that's the whole idea behind the cookbook, is easy recipes anybody can do. You're not going to be running down to Whole Foods or Epicurean Market trying to find some weird ingredient, you know, because who has time for that? So anyway, that's the most important thing, is just be versatile. Just shop your pantry, look around. And then when you go to the grocery store, you can look for what's on sale and work around that. When you're shopping for a recipe, you have to take whatever price it is that day. So when you've already have this stuff in your pantry, then you can kind of shop the sales a little more. Maybe the rotisserie chicken is not on sale this week, but they have a pork loin, a tenderloin pork. So I'm going to buy that and I'm going to shred it and make barbecue sandwiches. I'm going to shred it and make tacos, shred it and make quesadillas, or put it in a soup, or put it in a chili, because it works just as well as the chicken did for all those recipes we talked about. So you can kind of shop and see what's on sale. So if you're used to working with recipes, I know some people just aren't comfortable going off recipe. I need you to tell me, I need exactly what it's supposed to be. So just find your favorites, make you a little notebook. I've tried these, they're good. And I'm going to make sure everything's in the pantry for whenever I might want to have this, you know, and just have you a good variety of things that you can always kind of go to. So stock your pantry, say no to meal planning. All right.